Bismillah wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So, what is the last piece of advice I just mentioned? Nobody's taking notes, huh?
Don't go to the sister's part.
Don't go to the sister's gym session.
Don't go to a lecture unless you're prepared. No, let me rephrase. If you go to a lecture, you have to be prepared to listen and take it and implement what you learn. Otherwise, it'll be a witness against you on the day of judgment.
Amazing. Very well said.
Somebody here also to avoid,
Nah. What were you gonna say, boss man?
Your knowledge, just implement it into your life.
Any knowledge you gain, try to implement it in your life, because knowledge alone is not enough. You have to act upon the knowledge. Sah, Ilyas? Sah. Okay. Alright, let's get to it. Now, Imam al-Ghazali stays on, we're still on one piece of advice right now, but it's long. It's long. This specific piece of advice, which is the third advice we're going over, is very long. So we're still continuing on that thought. We're generous enough to give you guys a pizza break. Okay. So here's the next part. Now this part is also, I want everybody to please pay attention to this part. So the chit chatter and everything, let's tone it down. وَرُؤْيَ أَنَّ الْجُنَيْدِ Junayd was a man who was a legendary in Islamic sciences. A very well-known scholar from the past. What's his full name, Umar? Do you remember his full name? Junayd. I don't remember his last name. But, so وَرُؤْيَ أَنَّ الْجُنَيْدِ قَدَّسَ اللَّهُ سِرَّهُ رُؤْيَ فِي الْمَنَامِ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهِ Al-Junayd, after he passed away. Okay? Al-Junayd, after he passed away, somebody saw Al-Junayd in a dream after he passed away. So Junayd at this point had already passed away. He was a scholar of the past. Very well-known scholar. Junayd had passed away, and somebody saw him in a dream. Somebody saw Junayd in a dream, so they asked him, usually when you see somebody who passed away, what's the first thing you say to them? No. If you saw them in a dream, what would you ask them?
How are you doing?
How are you doing? How's life on the other side? What's the barzakh like? What's the barzakh like? Are you doing okay? Is everything okay? What's happening? Right? So Junayd was seen in a dream,
This is good.
and somebody saw him in a dream.
He's been here for 2 days, I think.
And somebody saw him in a dream. Okay? Somebody saw Junayd in a dream, فَقِيلَ لَهُ. So they said to him, مَا الْخَبَرُ يَا أَبَا الْقَاسِمِ What's the news? What's happening? What's the word, big bro? What's happening? What's going on? مَا الْخَبَرُ What's happening? يَا أَبَا الْقَاسِمِ Ya Junayd, what's going on? You've passed away, what's going on in that world? Okay? قَالَ قال الجنيد طاحت تلك العبارات everything that I said has vanished. This is what Junayd is saying. He said everything that I had said, imagine he's a scholar, a sheikh. He said everything I said had vanished. And he said وَفَنِيَتْ تِلْكَ الْإِشَارَاتِ And he says every example I've given, when I get up and give khutbahs and when I get up and give lectures, every example that I have given vanished. I can't find it anymore. So he says, all the words that I used to say on the minbar, all the words I used to say in all my halaqas, all the words that I used to say in all my lectures have vanished. I can't find them in the barzakh. I can't find them in this life. I can't find them in my here life. I can't find them in the qabr. And the next thing he says, وَمَا نَفَعْنَا إِلَّا رُكَيْعَاتٌ رَكَعْنَاهَا فِي جَوْفِ اللَّيْلِ He says the only things that have benefited us and benefited me, I've given all these lectures, and I've given so much khutbahs, and I've had so many halaqas, and I've read so many books. But the only thing that benefit me is 2 rak'at that I used to do in the middle of the night. Just 2 rak'ahs that I used to do in the middle of the night. That's the only thing I found in this life. That's the only thing I was able to find. Everything that I've done, I found none of it there. But the only thing that's benefited me in this life, in the barzakh, is 2 rak'at that I prayed in the middle of the night. So everything that Junayd has done, he couldn't find it. It wasn't there for him. And Umar radiallahu anhu says, in relation to this, Umar radiallahu anhu mentions and he says, we should all conceal our good deeds just like we hide our bad deeds. Me and you should conceal every good deed that we do just like we hide our bad deeds. Why? Just like our brother Junayd here. After every lecture, oh mashallah, you did great, you did this, you're amazing, amazing khutbah, amazing this, amazing lecture, you're so good in the community, you're so this. He says, I couldn't find anything. Muhammad, drop it, please. He says, I couldn't find anything except 2 rak'ahs that I prayed in the middle of the night. And that's why Umar radiallahu anhu is saying this. I mean,
that was sincere.
the sincerity.
2 rak'ahs at night,
Exactly.
sincere. The rest
Perfect
of them were
point.
not sincere. Yeah.
Exactly what Brother Umar said. Those 2 rak'ahs, what's different between those 2 rak'ahs than every other deed he's done? Private. Between him and his Creator. Nobody's forcing him to get up and pray in the middle of the night. Nobody's telling him to get up. He's not posting it on social media, 4 a.m., 2 hours before Fajr, tahajjud time. I'm at the masjid, location, or Islamic Center of Aurora. Nobody, no. But this is just 2 rak'ahs that nobody knows he even performed. Everybody in his household is asleep. But he got up by himself and did those. He said, those are the only 2 things I found. Why? Because that was just the main sincere thing between me and Allah. That's the covenant I had between me and Allah. Everything else, people were getting to my head. Good, oh mashallah, young sheikh, young this, young scholar, he's year 4 qalam, he's year 1, here's this, he's graduated, he's adamiyya, he's mufti. Good lecture, we need you more around. Takes a big part of your sincerity away. But he found the only things that were benefiting him is the things that he did alone between him and Allah that nobody else pushed him to do. Nobody forced him to do. He didn't put it on social media. None of it. Nobody knew about it. And that's why Umar radiallahu anhu used to emphasize, conceal your good deeds just as you conceal your bad deeds. Now don't take this to a point where you're like, I'm never doing a good deed in public. Now, if you and your friend are going out somewhere, hey, let's go pray together, Aisha, real quick before we go out. That's a good deed. You don't have to conceal that. Now, there's a state for everything. Okay? Now, keeping it pushing, we're still on the fourth advice here. He's still continuing with the same advice. No, I'm sorry, this is a new advice. This is the 4th advice. He says, how does he start his advices again? يا أيها الولد لا تكن من الأعمال مفلسا. Let me stop here real quick. Let me just stop it right here. A lot of people say that Imam al-Ghazali doesn't know hadith. Imam al-Ghazali doesn't know about hadith and he doesn't know how to differentiate between good hadith and sahih and da'if. I've seen this comment before from shuyukh who've told me this before. If those people come up to you and tell you Imam al-Ghazali doesn't know how to differentiate hadith, don't be friends with them. I'm just joking. Don't take me seriously, guys. Be friends with them, it's fine. But this is a prime example of Imam al-Ghazali basing all his work based on a hadith. When is the last time you heard somebody say muflisan? Who knows what muflisan means? Huh?
Without value?
Broke.
Mish broke. Worse than broke, I would say.
Bankrupt.
Bankrupt. Muflisan. There's a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. See where, guys, let's quiet down. He says, The Prophet ﷺ says, before I continue with this is just me sidetracking here real quick. One day after Salat al-Fajr, I'm not sure exactly what time, but some people say it was after Salat al-Fajr, the Prophet ﷺ used to sit down with the Sahaba and ask them questions. So he'd ask them a question. He says, this is mentioned in Sahih Muslim in Bukhari, by the way, and he says, أَتَدْرُونَ مَا الْمُفْلِسِ? Do you know who the one who is bankrupt? This is what he asked the Sahaba. The Sahaba replied back and said, Ya Rasulullah, they said, Al-Muflis fina man la dirham lahu wa la mata'. Right? The one who's muflis, the one who's bankrupt, is the one who doesn't have money, doesn't own anything, doesn't have wealth. That's the bankrupt. But here's what the Prophet ﷺ says. فَقَالَ إِنَّ الْمُفْلِسُ مِنْ أُمَّتِي يَأْتِي يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ بِصَلَاتِهِ وَصِيَامِهِ وَالزَّكَاةِ. The muflis is the one who comes on the day of judgment. He comes on the day of judgment with what? As-salah, zakah, and his fasting. This is the one who's bankrupt. Make it make sense. How are you coming on the day of judgment with salah, zakat, and sawm, but you're bankrupt? Second part of the hadith. Alright? So he says, the Prophet ﷺ continues, وَيَأْتِي قَدْ شَتَمَ هَذَا وَقَذَفَ هَذَا وَأَكَلَ مَالَ هَذَا وَسَفَكَ دَمَّ هَذَا وَضُرِبَ هَذَا. Says this person comes up and stands in front of the day of judgment in front of Allah. And this person has all the deeds, the fasting, the praying, the salah, the zakat, all of it. He has it. He's ready to get his visa stamped into Jannah. He's ready. But he's standing in front of Allah now. That's all he needs is the stamp. And then somebody comes up. And this person says, you talked about me. In that dunya, you were backbiting me. Give me some of that prayer, brother. So some of his prayer deeds will go to that person. And another person will come up and say, wait a minute. You used to talk about me and say I'm not a good Muslim. You used to call me Ramadan Muslim. So give me some of your sawm. Those fasting deeds that you used to give it to me. And then you would say, you owe me money in the dunya and you denied it. Or you stole my land from me. You stole some money from me and you didn't give it to me. Give me some of that zakat you gave out. And the list goes on, and somebody will come and say, you hit me. You caused me to bleed. You made me sad. You made me all of this. Give me some of your deeds. فَيَعْطِي هَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ. So he gives from his good deeds here, and he gives this person his good deeds here. And he says, فَإِنْ فَنِيَتْ حَسَنَاتُهُ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَقْضِي مَا عَلَيْهِ. And he says, then this person gives all his good deeds away to people till there's nothing left. It's empty now. Now what happens? He starts doing what? He has no more good deeds to give to people. What happens?
He takes their bad deeds.
He starts taking their bad deeds. أخذ من خطاياهم فطرحت عليه ثم طرح في النار. He starts taking, he has no more good deeds, all those, the salah, the zakat, the sawm, everything he did, the lectures they gave, all of that. All gone. Now what? People are coming up and say, hey, wait a minute, we're not done with you. You backbited me on this day, you did this to me on that day, you talked about me on this day, you slandered me, you did this, you did that, you did this. I ain't got no more good deeds to give you. Okay, that's no problem. Take my bad deeds. Take some stress off my shoulder. To the point he has nothing left except bad deeds, and he will be thrown into an-nar, into hellfire. Now, Imam Ghazali, I know I went off on this one a little to the left. It's not mentioned, this hadith is not mentioned in the book, but it's a pure sign that shows for anybody who thinks Imam Ghazali wasn't somebody who was educated in the hadith or the sciences of hadith, The word muflis is something that's used in the Arabic language. And here's what he said. He said, يَا أَيُّهَا الْوَلَدْ لَا تَكُنْ مِنَ الْأَعْمَالِ مُفْلِسًا. Don't be like that. He's referring to the hadith. Don't be like that person from his good deeds who are bankrupt. Okay? مِنَ الْأَعْمَالِ مُفْلِسًا. Don't focus so much on your deeds. وَلَا مِنَ الْأَحْوَالِ خَالِيًا.
It could, Sheikh Abdullah, it could also mean he doesn't have amal. He doesn't have enough of good amal.
What the Sheikh's saying?
I think so. I think that,
It could be, yeah, potentially. No.
It's because like the amal is more important than salah. Amal means the good deeds. Amal. وعمل الصالحات. So it could be that لا تكن من الأعمال مفلسا mean don't be short on amal. Is that Allah? So you have the book. But
No, that could be a potential
because
meaning.
Arabic
That
is my
could,
language, so that's how
no, that could definitely be a potential meaning. I agree. Yeah, don't be short on your amal. Yeah, that could definitely be a potential meaning. Don't be destitute of your good deeds. Yeah, don't be short on your amal. And then what my teacher explained to us is don't be the person who's bankrupt. He's referring that the Prophet ﷺ is referring to the person who's bankrupt of their deeds. Muflisan, on the day of judgment. Okay? لا تكن من الأعمال مفلسا ومن الأحوال خاليا. What does the word أحوال mean?
Check. Like situation.
Situation, give me another word. You're close.
Condition.
Condition. Your state that you're in.
Condition.
من الأحوال. So what does this mean when Imam says ولا من الأحوال خاليا? He says don't be, when it comes down to your states that you're in, don't be somebody who just lets everything just go past by. You get so used to doing good deeds that the state of the good deed isn't there anymore. Meaning salah. Every good deed you do has a state. Salah, the state of salah is what? What is it? Khushu'. Right? And you know when people say, when the salat tanha anil fahsha. Salat basically crosses out all the bad. When people are saying, I've been praying, but I'm still doing bad, you're not praying correctly. It's that simple. It's that simple. You're not in the right state. Are you making the intention to go make wudu? Before you enter the bathroom, are you saying what you need to be saying? Are you taking your time with wudu? When you stand up in front of Allah, are you really just in this, you put everything behind you? And when you raise your hands to say Allahu Akbar, you throw this dunya behind you. Are you in that state of khushu' when you're praying? Once you get to that point, that's the state of your a'mal. We get so used to praying 5 times a day. But how many of us are in a state of khushu' 5 times a day? That's the real question. So Imam Ghazali, the advice he's giving, he's saying, وَلَا مِنَ الْأَحْوَالِ خَالِيًا. Don't do so much good deeds to the point that you've deprived yourself from the state of good deeds. Why? Giving zakat is supposed to do what for you? It hurts, right? Giving money hurts. Humble you. Humble you. When you're fasting, you're feeling for what? The poor. There's a state for every good deed. There's a hal for every good deed. Now, so don't do these things so much to the point that you start depriving yourself of the state. Check yourself. Okay? And he says, and here's a perfect example my teacher gave me. He says, look, if I go to the store and I make all these amazing ingredients, I buy a ribeye, halal, right? And I'm buying, the Barbie cans, 0% alcohol Barbie can, And we're getting the salt and the pepper and the mashed potatoes. We're just getting a raw potato, but we're getting everything else, right? And then we're going to go home and cook it. The ingredients. I went and got the ingredients. And then I put them all in a blender, including the ribeye. And then I served it. I'm not eating that, bro. Nobody's eating that. Nah? But the point that he's trying to make here is that presentation matters. When you get up to pray, what are you praying in? Pajamas? A little tank top? What are you doing, bro? I just came back from the gym. Bro, put your thong on and pray. Put your best clothes on and pray. And you stink. Don't come to the measure straight from the gym, please. Right? Like everything, presentation matters. Yes, you got all the ingredients, you came to the masjid, but the way you present it, the process of things being made, that state that had matters. Now, that's the point. With every good deed you do, everything matters. Okay? So he says, number one, don't bankrupt your good deeds. Number two, don't be the auditor of your own good deeds. Oh, we get so attached. Yeah, I just said salam alaikum, 70 hasanat right there. I just read alf lam mim, 30, boom. I prayed at the masjid, 270 hasanat. You start counting, like calorie counting, whatever. Don't do that with your deeds. Stop being the auditor. But rather pay attention more to what? The state that you're in when you're doing a good deed. Now the last thing he says, وَتَيَقَّنْ أَنَّ الْعِلْمَ الْمُجَرَّدْ لَا يَأْخُذُ بِالْيَدِ. Just know that just knowledge by itself, knowledge, just because you have knowledge, you've attained knowledge, you listen to all these podcasts, you go to school, an Islamic school and all this stuff, knowledge isn't going to come and grab you by the hand. It's not going to carry you to Jannah. Knowledge is not going to do that. Right? And I think, how much more time? I think right here is a good time. Good stopping point, inshallah. Is it 8:05 or 9:05? The whole time I'm like, I got another hour. Anyways. Anyways, here's a good stopping point. This is actually the fourth advice is the advice that is actually very, very long. We'll probably spend all of next session on it. And we'll go from there. Bi'idhnillah. How many advice have we covered so far?
4.
3.5, let's say. Okay? Inshallah. But we're on the fourth one now. Let's open it up to questions here, inshallah. Yes?
So still that, what you were saying earlier, that if you come to a lecture and you take in that information and you go home and you don't implement it and it's going to be against you, how do you balance that with continuing to go to lectures because you might not process it and take it in immediately? So we don't want to discourage people from going to lectures if they're going to have that fear of, well, I'm not ready to implement this, so maybe I just won't go.
Here's, and I don't want to, I'm going to be harsh on this one, okay? I'm going to be very harsh on this one, because the way my teacher explained it to me, and we had somebody in the class actually asked the same exact question you asked. And the teacher explained it, he said that maybe we should all stop coming. He said none of us are going to go home and implement it right away. None of us will implement it immediately. He says maybe none of us should even be students at Qalam. None of us. I'd rather not be here because knowing that whatever I learned there will be used against me, I'd rather just stop showing up. It's better for me to stop showing up till I get everything down, right? But he says, who are you hurting there? Who's being hurt? The Prophet ﷺ, when he was giving advice to people, how many years did he spend in Mecca? How many traveled with him from Mecca to Medina? How many Muslims? The number is like under 300. So 13 years he was only able to gather 300 people. In the biggest hub of the Middle East. The place that everybody travels to for trade, for worship, for everything. He was only able to get 300. And then some of those people accepted Islam. So Amr ibn al-As only accepted in the last 2 years of his prophethood. And yet from his experiences, Amr ibn al-As will tell you that he was my best friend. Because of how the Prophet ﷺ treated people. But the point is that you now understand it. You know it. The main thing is, okay, I need to take some hurdles. I might not be ready now. I'm not ready now. I know, we all know we shouldn't be memorizing the Quran. We have the time to memorize the Quran. Starting with myself. Right? We keep it, push it to the back of our heads, minds, whatever, things like that. The thing is, once you start making this purely your priority, those things will start falling into place. You'll start checking yourself by yourself without needing anybody to come tell you at a lecture. That's the most important thing. Now you know. The important piece is, okay, I know, and I'm going to take the steps. I have the niyyah, I have the intention, I want to be a better Muslim. Who doesn't want to be there? There's no such thing as the perfect Muslim. There's no such thing. But I want to be that Muslim. I want to reach the level of ihsan. I want to get to the point when I pray, that when I'm praying, as if I'm praying in front of Allah, He's standing in front of me, watching me pray. That's the point I want to get to. Am I there yet? No. Am I at that level of khushu'? No. right? But that's eventually where I want to be. I know it. So what steps am I taking to get there, right? You have the intention. You're ready. And the proof that you have the intention is the fact you showed up on a Saturday night. Weather's getting cold. That's the first proof, first step. Some of you people are driving from 35, 40 minutes away, including myself. Now, that's the thing. You have that point. But now it's okay. Now you know this. Hujjatun against me. A proof against me. So what am I going to do about it? Am I just going to be okay with it? Or am I going to stand in front of Allah and say, Ya Allah, I just wasn't ready to pray, man. Also, what you've been doing for 35 years. I just wasn't at that point. Okay. What do? He's Ghafur Rahim. Whatever happens at that point, I don't know. You don't know. Allahu A'lam. Right? Allahu A'lam. But you have the intention. You know what needs to happen. Act upon it. Whether you act immediately, whether it takes you some time, whether you need to sometimes just get rid of some of your bad habits before you start acting on good ones. You know, I believe it was maybe Imam Malik or, I'm not sure who the Imam was exactly, but they were giving a khutbah. And after the khutbah on Jum'ah, somebody came up to them saying, Imam Malik or whoever it was, can you please give a khutbah about slaves and how we need to free slaves? Months passed by. Months. The Imam never gave a khutbah about the slaves. Eventually he gave the khutbah. Then that person comes to me and says, oh, it's been like 6 months. I told you like 6 months ago. Why haven't you given the khutbah? What's the reason? I can't. I myself have a slave. I had to get rid of, make sure whatever I'm doing, I gotta push it away before I can talk about it. Before I can fully submerge myself in salah or waking up for Fajr at Tahajjud, what's keeping me up at night? Huh? What am I watching that's preventing me? And when you notice yourself and you start questioning, okay, I'm not praying anymore. And the whole point of this series is to start checking yourself. Okay, I'm not waking up on time anymore. For the men, I'm not going to pray Isha and Fajr at the masjid. I'm not doing this. I'm not fasting at least one day a month. The last time I picked up a Quran and actually read was 3 weeks ago. Huh? What's the first hadith Imam mentions? What's the first hadith he mentions? In the first nasiha, he says what? علامة إعراض الله تعالى عن العبد اشتغاله بما لا يعنيه. One of the signs Allah has neglected you is making you busy with things that don't benefit you. So now when you're checking yourself, I'm not waking up to pray. I'm praying my salah late. I'm praying Isha late. I'm doing all this stuff late. Some of us aren't even doing it. Last time I picked up a Quran and even tried to read was weeks ago, maybe months ago. Last time I tried to memorize the book of Allah was however long ago. Last time I sincerely felt pure khushu' was like Ramadan. Are you in the category of those people who Allah has neglected? And that's the whole point of this series, just self-check. Self-check. And that's what Imam Ghazali does. He just gets straight to the heart. He speaks straight to your soul. When you start reading his work and his books, you're like, man, I'm this person. He's talking to me. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not acting on knowledge. You start questioning everything. During our Ramadan series, I remember calling Imam Abdul Rahim, and I told Imam Abdul Rahim, I said, hey, I don't want to do the lectures no more. What's going on? I was reading a book by Imam Ghazali. I don't want to do the lectures, ya Imam. He said, what's the reason? I said, Sheikh, this Sheikh is talking straight to me. I don't think my intention is there. I don't think I'm doing it for the right reasons. And all these things, how can I start telling people about it if I'm not doing it? He's telling me I got to wake up at this time, and the minute I wear my clothes, I got to think about Allah. And Bidayah is deep. That book, Beginning of Guidance, is deep. And he tells you how to structure your day. And I'm not doing that. So I'm like, yo, Sheikh, I'm done with the lectures. It's over with. I got to implement this. Right? And that's what Imam Ghazali does. He's like, Sheikh was telling me that it worked. You're checking yourself. You're figuring it out. You're taking the steps. Nah? That's the whole point. That's it. Whether you take the advice and you decide, say, this is not for me, or Imam Ghazali is not a person I want to study off of, or I've had people literally during Ramadan walk out because I was like, oh, I'm doing this book of Ibn, walked out. They believe weird things, whatever it may be. This is that. A person who's this well known, a scholar that's this well known, wouldn't be. I mean, a proof that Allah has accepted him is the fact that we're reading his books today. That's a proof that Allah has accepted him and is content with him. A proof that we're still reading his books today. Nah? But that's a whole different topic. I keep going into it. But inshallah. Hopefully that answered a little bit of your question.
Yeah, I asked it because I don't want our younger ones here to feel like I'm not there and be discouraged, right?
Nah.
From continuing to come.
Yeah, it's the most important thing about Iman is you're never going to be perfect. And your Iman is at a constant state of change. Right? Just like the Prophet Muhammad said, you know, like the Sahaba, he told them, he's like, yo, if y'all were perfect, Allah will literally destroy y'all. Boom, out. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to replace y'all with the species that does sin and repents. You're going to fall. You're going to fall. You will slip up. And some slip-ups will be harder than the ones before. We've all made mistakes, and some of our mistakes, may Allah, you still in all, just conceal all our sins. Say, I mean, but, nah, exactly. And everybody, right, everybody worships based on what? Based on what they're capable of worshiping. Nah? Somebody who just entered Islam, I've seen people who've reverted and come to Islam, wallahi al-azim, they get up the first day they get up for tahajjud. Some of us, 20, 30 years, ain't ever woken up to pray tahajjud. Right? But Iman, it's different for everybody. Everybody's at a different state. And the beautiful thing is the Prophet ﷺ, when he used to give advice, he never forced anybody to come to his level of Iman, because he's up there. Right? He never forced anybody to come to his level. But what did he do? He came down to their level. Yeah? Constantly came down to their level. And then just clearly showing that Iman is constant. Iman changes. But make sure that your Iman is linear. Always. That relationship is always linear. That's the number one thing. You have to make sure your Iman is in a linear relationship with Allah. Yes, you will slip up, you will fall, but you're still going up. You're still going up. Now, right? So please, especially for the youth, we've all been there, we've all done that, we've taken from experience from some of the older people. Wallahi, if we were all perfect, Jannah is an easy, like I said, visa, right? You would have had the visa before you were born. But we're not. Sometimes are darker, sometimes are harder. Sometimes your Iman is up here, sometimes you're praying every salah, and sometimes it's not. Ramadan is the perfect example. Ramadan comes and you feel spirits you've never felt before, every year. And those last 10 days, think about it. We're all stinky. We're sweating. And people's socks next to you. Y'all didn't get no sleep at night. Standing up, coming in at 3 a.m. for tahajjud. Staying up. Umar Siddiqui just read Surah Al-Baqarah all night long. You're tired. And now you got to come back up and again you got to read whatever it is. It's tiring, man. It's tough. But you do it. Because your Iman is at a different level. And you got work the next day. And you got school the next day. It's tough. But then what happens? Ramadan leaves. How many of us are waking up for tahajjud every single night in a row? We did it for 10 nights in a row. How many of us are doing it? Even once, 2 times a month. Ma'as salama. Right? This is what Iman is. Any more questions? Let's take questions.